Welcome to the Creative Gap Podcast, Mait, Hudson. It's good to have you here.
Let's go. Let's run it.
First thing I want to ask you is, based on where you are in your life now, based on career, personal life, where do you find the most joy right now?
That's great. Off the bat, I love it. The most joy I find, I would say, staring into my son's eyes. Got a almost 3-month-old right now, and it's been a journey. The past 3 months, it felt like 3 years, but it's been a really sweet, beautiful time. As a creative, like learning what it means to put your hands to something and work really hard and spend a lot of time like creating a product, creating a video, creating a concept or whatever it might be. Um, there's no comparable feeling to creating a kid and loving someone so much that you're like, man, I want to make a baby with you and bring him into this crazy, crazy world, and walk with him, talk with him, and lead him and guide him throughout his life. And getting a glimpse of that in the past 3 months has been amazing. And every other parent I talk to is like, oh man, time just flies and time just moves so fast. And you blink and they're 18 and they are off to college or don't want to talk to you or whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
I think for me, what's bringing me joy is going, okay, I'm hearing this among a bunch of people. How can I stop? And in this moment, this kid is just looking at me. All he needs is what I have.
Mhm.
And seeing his eyes look at me and feeling that and going, nothing else matters as much as this. And the joy
Mhm.
that comes from that is pretty undescribable. I think it's one of those things is like when you feel it, it's just like, I didn't know I could feel this feeling to
Right.
this extent. I think like creating a cool concept or a product and like seeing it out in the world is really cool and it's joyful, but seeing breath in a child that is staring at you and thinking that is just incomparable. So
Mm.
the
I
joy
love
is
that.
is endless and the nights are sleepless and it's amazing.
Mm. Mm. I love that. And I kind of want to talk a little bit more about it. How do you think that having your child has kind of already in the past 3 months maybe changed for the better your relationship with your wife? Or how is it
Mm.
in general? Just like, what is your relationship dynamic now?
Yeah. It's a tough one. Like we were married for probably 3.5 years prior. I think that's the math. And we dated for a year and a half before that. So like coming up around like 5 years. And the first 5 years that we've, lived together and done life together, it's been like a very foundational building that foundation with each other, and we've had high highs and low lows, um but at the end of the day, like have progressed and challenged and loved and grown, just grown more in love with each other and grown better together. And so that was like the base, and then it was like,
Mm.
okay, we feel we feel pretty solid. Let's just try, and see what happens. And we tried one time and it happened. And uh I would say seeing her now be a mom is wild. Like it's like
Mm.
you
I love
fall in
that.
love with this person who, you see from across the way. Like for me, it was at church and I saw her across the way at church. I'm like, oh man, she seems amazing. And then you get to know each other, then you get close, and then you fall in love, and then you do life and you travel, and then it's like then you create, like it's still blowing my mind. I'm only 3 months in. It's blowing my
Mm.
mind where it's just like the only way this person is existing is because you and me met and created this thing. Like now it's
Right.
here, now it's alive.
Yeah.
Um, and so now seeing him, it makes me go like, man, I
Mm.
love her so much. Like I can see her in him. And seeing how she cares for him and treats him and loves on him, which also feels like a part of me. Um, I would say it's increased my love for her beyond my imagination, and it's interesting because it's like we're not really in like a stage of life right now where we're like dating and schmoozing and like going out and just, like it's like we're like work mode. Let's keep this baby alive. Let's keep him fed. Let's keep him happy. So there's not a lot of like the romantic intimacy,
Mm.
which you would think that would like, but for us right now, it's like just seeing her like he has a diaper and she just gets up and just goes change his diaper like, shoo, like that. That's doing it for me right now, bro. I'm like, man, you are amazing. Like I don't need anything else. Like the way that you just gave him that bottle, it's just like, oh, you're so awesome. So I would say
That's beautiful.
it's been really cool.
Amazing. Dude, that's beautiful. Something I really want to kind of talk a little bit about in terms of this conversation in general is kind of like faith a little bit, because I don't really get a chance to talk to many people about it. And it's something that I'm trying to find for myself. And
Mm,
I've been trying to find and like navigate it over the past 2 years. And just to give you a little background, I know we met at Elevation that one time, but
yeah,
I think about four, maybe 5, 6 years ago, my dad became a born again Christian, and
mm,
I grew up going to church, but only for the reason of like, it's the right thing to do. It's Sunday. You should just go.
for sure.
But I didn't really have, I had no reason, I didn't really care, to be honest.
Yeah,
And then
feel that.
my dad started preaching, and he started like, our conversation started changing where it was less about like me talking to my dad and more of like me talking to my dad and this like newfound preacher type of person.
Mm, mm,
So initially I was a bit standoffish, and it kind of threw me off, and I didn't really want anything to do with it. And eventually, he always told me, he's like, I'm just planting the seeds, and sure enough, I think, to be honest, the one song that your wife sang, "It Is So," I believe it
mm,
was one of the songs that like really got me and
yeah,
like changed something inside me for
mm,
sure. And then I started following it more and more, and just like wanting, and my curiosity just started. I was becoming more curious, and that's something that me and my wife are now trying to figure out, is what does our faith look like? What are we trying to
yeah,
build together for our family? So I guess my question to you is like, how does your faith kind of shape you in your life, your wife, and how you raise a family and kind of walk on a
yeah,
daily basis?
yeah. That's amazing. So you're saying, like it was like 4 years ago for you that it like shifted, or was it
I
like
think it
later
was
after?
probably, it's got to be around 3 to 4 years ago, it started to shift in the sense that I was more curious about learning about it now, and like opening myself up to it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's amazing, bro. And congrats on getting married. Like, that's
Thanks,
amazing.
dude.
And you guys, I saw the photos. You guys have like dated or known each other for a really long time, right?
Yeah, we met in high school. We were 15 years old, so 10 years.
Dang. And now you're married.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's beautiful. How far into it are you? Is like a month or two?
2 months. We leave for our honeymoon on Tuesday. So,
Oh, snap.
yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. That's exciting.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, to answer the question, I would say like for me it's part of like the question that you asked is like how does it and how is it incorporated or how is it involved? And for me it's like I grew up in a similar way where my dad was a pastor, traveling for supercross and motocross, and he was a chaplain. And I just was a Christian because of that. And we went to church when he was in town. And then when I was 16, I was like in a really rough spot in my life where I was partying, drinking, hooking up with girls, doing everything in between, just because that was what the kids at my high school did. And I was just
Right.
like, man, there was something in me that was like, it feels like there's more to life than waking up hungover and breaking some random girl's heart. And I was like, I just want more from this life. And I, was like, I know church is like what you're supposed to do, and like that's like where good people are, I think.
Mm,
So I got curious as well, and I just went and every Sunday I would just drive up the street. I live in like a suburban area where there's a church on every corner, and I would just, if it said church, I would pop in and just see like, all right, what is this about? And I went to a couple and figured out what works for me and what didn't work for me. And part of that was just which one like kept me awake. And I found
right.
Elevation, and they were launching their kids album, and they were bouncing beach balls into the crowd, which was crazy. And I was like, oh, this seems pretty dope.
Hmm.
And so through that, like, is where like I just started like really like searching and really discovering like, all right, like what is the Bible talking about? Like what are how should I be living? What should I be doing? How should I be thinking? And I would say
Mm,
like that was huge for me. It's like reading the Word of God and allowing that to shape my mind, because like my mind was fixed on like all this stuff that I was around, and that's what shaped it. The people who I was around, what they were saying, what we should do, how we should feel, and I just allowed like God's word to kind of shift and change that. And I believe that like when you do read the word, it cuts you and it shapes you.
mm,
And for me, that was like very pivotal. And then I would say from like 16 to like 22 was just this like radical journey of like falling deeply in love with Jesus, and changing my whole life, and having friends go like, dude, who are you? And you like, we don't want to hang out with you. You're acting different. You're acting like
right.
this. And I was like, I wasn't trying to like condemn anybody or doing, like, I was just like, bro, I don't even want to do this stuff anymore. Like, I just
Mm,
want to live the life that like brings life to people, and builds people up, and like we can spend time together on the weekend and like encourage one another and do life together. And um, so I would say like that's a little bit of my story, but that journey is now like led me to where I'm at 27, um, and in a place where I'm like, there is nothing else. Like there is no plan B or like what
mm,
if, or it's for me, it's like I knew who I was, and I knew the nasty, like rotten, dirty person that I was. And I experienced Jesus in a way that completely transformed me. And only we can really know that. Like you're saying, like you can have like a father figure or a pastor or somebody like
sure.
tell you, but once you experience it, and for you, like you're saying, like if it was that song, that's like part of the reason I married Tiff. I like or started dating her. I was like, the way that she led worship was, and it was honestly around that time where they had just written "It Is So" and started singing it, and I was like, there's something different about her and what she carries, and I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
for me, I was like, that's the type of girl that I would want to marry, is someone who isn't just singing to sing or leading to lead. Like you can tell their life is in this, and they're pouring their life out before us and leading us into worship unto God. And
mm,
for me, that's when I was like, all right, I want to like get around her and hang out with her and talk to her. And then now we have
yeah.
a baby.
I love that. I love
But
it.
it truly was like that formative thing, like where I'm like, yeah, I'm different, and I don't want to turn back. I want to
Mm,
find more and more. And the beauty of Jesus is there's just more and more to learn about, like ways to get better at living, and not for the sake of performance, but for the sake of love, like for the sake of like, I want to show you and live a life that glorifies you and honors you, and my words and what comes out of my mouth, and how I treat people, and how I spend my time, and how I spend my money, like all of that. So for me, I hope that answers that question. Is just like, it's just,
100%.
it
Yeah.
is what, like it is my life. Like I'm not
Mm,
I'm not shooting films or creating anything without him, and who he is and how he changed me at the forefront of all of that, you know?
right. I appreciate you sharing that. And as you were speaking, I kind of remembered something that happened to me that I always forget, but it seems like it was like this formative experience that I never
Yeah.
thought really was, it had to have been almost 8 years ago now. And at this point, I think maybe seven, I was maybe sophomore year in college. And at this point, full on like, smoking all the time, doing some drugs, doing like the normal shit.
Yeah.
And I went to California with my friend and his sister started to go to church more. And she brought us, and I've never been to a Christian church before in my life, and this is my first time.
Mhm.
And then something happened during the sermon where I just like stood up and like started crying.
Yeah.
But like, I have no idea. Like, something just, I felt something, and
Yeah.
then it made me stand up. It made me like kind of cry, and it just like moved me. But nothing really happened afterwards. And then, a couple years later, then I started to find it again. But I always go, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it was like, was
Mhm.
that some like pivotal moment that I just don't really recognize yet?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have tons of moments like that where and what I looking back on it now is like there is a carved out space in the depths of our hearts and the depths of our lives waiting to be filled by the Holy Spirit to live in us, to dwell with us, to walk with us. Like it's what the word says. And that space will always be longing for something. And it will
Mm,
always we will always try to fill it. Like for me, I was always trying to fill it. And I didn't even know I was trying to fill it, really. I just was in the motion of life of like I want to feel accepted. I want to feel loved. I want to feel important. I want to feel welcomed. And I was showing that in spaces that couldn't fill this hole. They would
mm,
temporarily fill it, and I would wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh man, it's still empty. Maybe I got to
right.
go harder, or try more, do more. And it was this like lifestyle of like, I'm just like tired, bro. Like I'm tired of trying and doing all this stuff that's like leaving me empty. And I think there's tons of moment even in my life where I look back and I'm like, yeah, I think that was like God like knocking on my door, going like, because that's the thing is like we like he showed me this like image one time of like my life because I was just like running. I was running. I was like, man, I don't as good as you are, like I don't feel like I should be accepted for who I am and what I've done. And it
Mm,
was just this like
mm,
journey of like of just understanding the abundance of grace and the abundance of love and what that actually means. But he showed me this image where he was like, you can go and hide and you can close your door and you can feel alone. And he showed me an image where it was like a blueprint of a house where there was no roof. You can just see like the top down angle of all these rooms. And he was like, you can go and you can shut your door and feel like you're running and you're alone, but I see you this way. I am with you
mm,
always. And all it takes is 1 second where you can turn your eyes and you can be back with me. And I think those moments that like you're saying and that we've had is just like that was a little glimpse where we let him in just a little bit. You're like,
right,
I've never been to a Christian
right.
church, but my friends are going, let me see. And he meets you and he goes, the desire for you to want him and opens up this space and opens up that space within us. And it's like he fills us. And I think the more I live my life, the more I'm just like, Lord, I want to create more space for you to dwell within
Mm,
me. Like, and I fill that space up with scrolling on Instagram, or I fill that space up with wanting to be accepted by
100%.
other people, whatever it could be. But I want to like remove that clutter and remove that and just create more moments where I can just walk with you and live with you. Cause like you're saying, like, bro, like it brings you to tears when you feel that
Mm,
and when you're that close. But I think it was also for me like this I was searching for this magic of like these goosebumps and these like high moments in church or at camp or whatever it was. But now I've been able to like find that same feeling in the what I would call mundane of life, and where I'm just sitting there with my son or making a cup of coffee where I just go, Lord, I welcome you into this space. like reveal to me what it is that you have for me today. And when I'm just like getting ready for work, like who is it
Mhm.
that you want me to talk to or encounter or any of that stuff? And he does it every time, you know?
Thank you for sharing, dude. Yeah, I did another interview a couple months ago with a director. His name's Solomon Lithelum. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar with him or his
of
work.
course. Yeah.
To me, he's probably, to a lot of people, he's probably one of the top directors, ever, like in the commercial space.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
But we had like a 2.5 hour conversation, and he was a writer for Hillsong for years
Mm.
on a lot of their music, and he was a writer on the song Oceans, which still is one of my favorite songs ever. And when I talked to him about Oceans and just like, his journey a little bit, he started to kind of explain to me that part of the reason he felt that his journey there was like a missing piece was because his career and his faith weren't really aligned. And
Mm.
he was starting to figure out a way where he could start incorporating his career into his faith and things where it started to merge. And what I want to lead into in terms of this question is kind of just like noticing that your work and how you promote yourself and who you're surrounded with is kind of, they're all conjoined. So I guess like as you start to figure out that you want to pursue a creative passion, was it always with the intent that it was going to be based in kind of a Christian format?
Mm. Yeah. That's a great question. And Solomon was like a huge inspiration to me. Like I went to Hillsong College growing
Mm.
up and was there like right after his time and got to sit down and have a coffee with him like a couple months back in New York and just
Oh,
kind of was
nice.
like, bro, like I don't know if I would be where I'm at without you. Like some of those early videos, seeing them and going like, man, you can make dope stuff and it can be for the Lord and it can
Mm.
inspire and create in ways that doesn't feel like, Jesus with feeding the 5,000 and this super just like cut and dry stuff that I saw growing up. And yeah, so I think he was a huge like inspiration. And I didn't even really even know like his story or just even just watching his films. And then for me, like I would say like to go back a little bit, like I started filmmaking because I was skateboarding with a bunch of my homies and we were starting to get decent at skating and I was like, man, we got to get sponsored. Like we got to figure this out and like make this our living. So like just borrowed my dad's camera and started shooting and editing and running mini DV tapes and through a Firewire and capture cam and making it happen when I was like 10, 11 years old and did that for like a local skate shop for a little bit, which was kind of like my first job and my first like introduction into editing and filmmaking. And we would do like skits and stuff. And so for me, like it didn't start there. But I would say like as my life, going through high school and like quitting skating and dropping filming because like girls at my high school didn't like dudes in skinny jeans. They wanted, polos and vineyard vines. I was like, all right, well, I gotta switch up and
Oh
can't
man.
can't be
Did you go to
rocking
the
this
Vineyard
anymore.
Vine? Did you do that whole look?
Oh yeah, bro. I was dialed. I was absolutely pink with plaid shorts and
Oh,
Sperry's and
oh
yeah,
man.
I was that
I
guy,
can't
man.
picture it. I can't.
I'll send you a photo afterward.
Please.
Um, but I did that, and like I said, when I was 16, like my life got changed, and for me, it was seeing this film that we did at Elevation for one of our Christmas services, and it was done like really well, and I was like, holy crap, like this is what I want to do. I know how to like. I used to know how to make videos, so like maybe I can buy a camera and like figure this out again. Um, so at that moment, it was like I had already committed. Like I'm living for Jesus, man. I'm like I'm not messing around anymore. And then it was like now I want to like use the talents. It's funny like saying like take my talents and like use them for His glory, but it's the more I look at it, it's he's given me this talent that now I'm just positioning it in a way that points it back to him. Um,
Right.
and doing that now, it's like it's not like I'm doing this and trying to like work in like the Christian world. Like I did a music video for like this screamo, super demonic, whatever, and it was just like it didn't, my perspective didn't change. Like I was still like,
Mm,
I'm gonna pray, I'm gonna walk into this. I'm not gonna try and force anything on anybody. I'm not gonna be that weird dude. Like, but I am going to carry the same presence
right.
that I carry no matter where I go. And so for me, even when it comes to, the something as Christian as like a worship live recording to that, to a athletic, shoot, whatever, it's like, it's all tangled, and it's all a one thing purpose of like, I'm doing all this because I've been given a gift that I believe
Mm,
a good gift, and that good gift is from the Lord. Um, and I'm going to try to do it in a way that points back to Him.
amazing. That's so interesting because I was going to ask you kind of what your perspective is on doing work outside of like
Mm,
that Christian format, that the themes, because I received a feature film offer from somebody, and it was interesting because like the budget was there, like, good
mm,
money for not just me but the project in general.
yeah,
Cool locations, like in terms of just like overall cinematography, it was like a dream. Like they wanted to
yeah,
shoot really moody stuff, really cool colors, but when I
heck
got
yeah.
to the script and like the theme, it was like satanic. And
Mm,
part of me was like, oh, I don't, something about this just feels wrong. And
yeah,
like I don't know what it was, but I ended up turning it down for that reason of just like
yeah,
I don't think I could really put myself into this story. I don't know how, and I don't know if that's good, bad, but I ended up turning it down for that reason. And I guess from your perspective, you shared a little bit, but do you find that you are open to other things outside of like that the Christian theme?
yeah. That's great. And I think what you're feeling is that conviction of like, there's something inside me that just doesn't like sit right with this.
It
And
didn't
I think that,
align really with what I
yeah,
what I wanted to kind of not tell, but like I guess just like I don't want to be associated with that type of thing, really.
yeah, yeah. And you're putting, time, energy, effort, you're putting your essentially your life into building something, and it's like, what are you building? And I commend you for that, because I think a lot of people at those moments give, like you're saying, if it's the budget's there, they're going to pay well, and we got to eat, and we got to build the
Right.
portfolio and keep going. At least that's what we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like, man, when you trust in the Lord, and you trust that He's leading you and He's guiding you, you never know what the reason is, or why you said no. Or you might have those things of like, but what if I would have said yes? What would that have shifted? What would that have changed?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, but when you trust that God is leading you and guiding you, and constructing your life, and you feel conviction and you are obedient to those convictions, it's like, that is like our purpose in walking and living with Him. Um, and we don't, sometimes it's very clear, it's like, oh yeah, that's why I said no. Or sometimes it's like, oh well, I don't know, nothing really
Right.
like came of that moment. um
Mm.
I've had tons of those where I got it right, and tons of those where I got it wrong, and I was just like, oh, this, it seems cool, and we're getting paid, this is dope. Especially like earlier on, I think now I'm at a space where I'm like, yeah, if I'm not feeling like peace about this, there's not a shot, because I've just done it
Mm.
the other way, where I've gone, I feel a little off, I'm gonna do it anyways, and then I like, you do it, and you're just like, oh wow, that felt really awful, and I
Right.
don't even know why I did that. Um, but I would say, like, even in the Christian space, like, there's projects I've, especially like recently, that
Mm.
I've turned down, where I'm just like, hey, I don't feel peace about this. Like, I've seen or experienced certain things where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna not going to associate with that, or I'm not going to put my hands to that. And it still gets made and people still like it on Instagram and it blows up and this and that, whatever. But I just have this thing inside me where I'm like, man, I just want to be obedient to your word and walk with
Right.
you. And I don't ever want to try and test that. Like, I don't ever want to try and be like, well, let me just see how far I can push past it. Um, so it's been interesting navigating that. But as far as just like actual work, like I actually love doing stuff outside of the church as well. I think there's like this like back and forth, especially like when you're in the church world, like it's a bubble in itself.
Hmm.
And we all talk and move and act very similar, which is always funny. Um, but there is this thing of like, yeah, like we need more people out in the streets and out on these sets, like doing this and bringing Jesus to these like sets, which yes, we do. And there are people like that, like Solomon, for example, like who
Hmm.
is a Christian and is doing stuff for Adidas and all these Ford and all these other brands and carries what the conviction that he carries. And that's important. And we need people who are still pouring into the local church and like who are working at a church and a filmmaker at a church and have awful budgets and short times and due dates that are unnecessary. Um, and both of, sorry, I was about to start going in on the
No, no, I
dive
love
into it a little
it.
bit. But yeah, I think it's important that they're both. And it's at the end of the day, it's like it's you, like it's me. When I look in the mirror, it's like, what do I feel? And for me, for the at least for the past like 6 years of my life, I felt I'm supposed to be here at this church, even though I've had opportunities or wanted to go elsewhere. Like the obedience of listening to the call of God on my life is way more
Hmm.
important than the next cool thing that I could post on Instagram. And I think when I'm walking and living in that, my life is better and it feels lighter and it feels purposeful. Um, so yeah, I think it's both, and it's discernment at the end of the day of like, all right, I could use the money and I want to do this, but Lord, what are you saying? And you
Right.
take that perspective, like when I take that perspective and put it in front of absolutely anything, a project, a conversation, an interaction, a podcast, like, Lord, why am I doing this podcast? And what is it that you want me to say or want us to talk about? It's a simple prayer like that I prayed a couple hours ago. And then I felt peace and I just step into it and do it. This is my first time
Mm.
ever doing a podcast. And a lot of it is
Ah,
because
that
like
makes me
I
happy.
just yeah, a lot of it is just because like I'm like I've had people ask and I'm just like, man, I don't feel peace about it at the moment. Like I don't where the space and the learning that I'm in right now, like I don't feel like I'm in a spot to project anything out into the world. And
Mm.
whether I'm right or
If
wrong
you
on
don't mind
that,
me asking, then
yeah.
what made you feel comfortable now to say yes?
Yeah, it was the past year of my life being in a season where I've just like dug deeper on some things in my life
Mm.
where I was moving complacently with my relationship with God, with my conversations, with my like some bitterness and negativity within my mind and in my heart, um, and just have just I say year, but it's been like a 3 year journey, and in the past year has just been like this like okay, I feel like I'm getting it under my wings. And I was just like, okay, like I feel good. Like I feel at a place where if somebody were to ask me, I have something to say from
Mm.
a healthy perspective. You know, I could have said some stuff on other podcasts and it might have been fine, but I was just in a space where I'm like, I don't want to just say stuff to say it. I want to say it to help or to inspire, to encourage, to build people up.
Love
So
it.
yeah, I mean, no one's asked me in the past year to be on their podcast, and then you asked, and I was like, "Dang, this seems so random," but I know when I feel that, I'm like, it's divine. Like there's something that
Mm.
feels so like like we met, and then like it was crazy because like I was telling my wife actually like right before we met, like I just found your YouTube channel, and I was kind of dabbling into YouTube, and I like watched one of your videos, and then I can't remember if it was a DM or something, like how I followed you or something, and we started messaging, and you
Yeah.
came to the church, and I was like, dang, it's just crazy how like God works sometimes. It's like I just watched this guy on YouTube, and now we're hanging out, and then haven't, kept in contact here and there, and now we're on a podcast, and I think there was just something on it that I was like, let me tap into this, and
Right.
yeah,
Well, I appreciate, yeah, because you
yeah,
probably, I mean, you had no idea what this conversation was going to be about at all. And,
no, I was hoping
me,
you
I
just
knew
were
that
gonna ask me about gear.
no, I never do. Never do. It's
Yeah.
like the last thing I ever ask anybody. But
I
I
love
knew
it.
kind of coming in what my intention was. And partially because, I have friends that are Christian, but none that are also in the creative space. So I
Mm,
was really curious to kind of just pick your brain because I feel like we share similar thoughts in terms of like how we perceive ourselves as a artist and create videos and film, but also in the faith aspect, that's something that I haven't had. I don't have a strong, self belief in yet. So that's where
mm,
really where I wanted to kind of just like pick your brain and just like ask you how, like, how did you get there? Pretty much,
mm, yeah.
you know, that was the
Well,
motive for me
yeah.
reaching out to you.
Hopefully
Plus,
I
I've
can.
loved what you, besides anything, I've also loved what you have done with Elevation as well, and like the films and everything. It's technically and like it's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really cool to be a part of it, and it's a small team of us who just make it happen, and some dudes
Mm,
who can just grind it out and put their hearts and talents and pour it into stuff that I look at it and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I could have done that by myself. But getting to like rock with a team who does it consistently, and we're just project to project, just building it together. It's a lot of fun.
amazing. I'm curious about your process in terms of career when you decided to take the film director role at Elevation. What
Yeah.
about like that specific job has been different, or like what are challenges that you faced as you've kind of navigated that career that you didn't expect when you took that job?
Mm, yeah, that's great. Tons of challenges, tons of feelings and emotions. Like it was a bit of a dream job.
Mm,
At the time I took it, I started out for just our church team and like making kind of mini doc style like story videos on like people who have been impacted by our ministry and like life changing stories, which was really cool to like learn in. Um, and I think Elevation was just doing it at the time I joined in 2017, was doing it in a way that, was up there with like some of the main people who were telling stories and doing documentaries. And um, I jumped in at like very novice and didn't know how to light anything or operate any big camera, and just had some guys who were like saw the passion and saw the gifting in me and taught me all that kind of stuff, and made fun of me sometimes and challenged me, and it was all good fun, and um, fell in love with that craft of like, oh man, like how do I get something to look like this? How to get something to feel like this?
mm,
And then fell in love with story. How can I create an emotion or a arc that makes somebody who's watching it in the audience like connect and feel that moment? Um, and then did that for about 4 years, 3 years or 4 years, and then during COVID switched over to Elevation Worship creative team and took a role as a film director. And that was also like a moment in time where I was like, I've done what I did, and I did it enough where I was like, oh, I'm ready for something new, and I felt
mm,
like something even in the music world. I don't know what that looks like, and then got the offer to switch teams during COVID, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is the Lord. Like I felt that like months in advance. And at that time, I just started doing freelance too with like some
Mm.
artists and doing music videos and stuff like that. So it's just like this really beautiful confirmation. And when I took that role, it was like, okay, like how can I capture this thing where, you know, worship is funny when it comes to like the way that we do it, because it's like this very intimate, very profound thing that we are filming, which sometimes felt
Mm.
intrusive or felt like, uh, is this right? I think I've had that feeling before, but then like understanding the heart in which we are doing it, and hearing testimonies of people who are like, I turned this YouTube video on and was at a really rough moment in my life, and I just clicked on it and the song spoke to me and my life changed because of that. And like hearing that and like hearing like just the way it was captured and made, just felt like I was in the room, and I felt like I was in, like hearing that, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Like how can I as a film director approach things in a way that gives people that moment to experience that.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but that, a lot of that was like learning into, you know, like I came on and I was like, I just want to make cool uh uh stuff to post on Instagram essentially. Like that's what I was doing it. And then so I could get more work to do cooler and better and bigger, and I had this moment where like I got to direct my first piece, and I got to like, it got to show at church in front of a, you know, couple thousand people, and it got cut and right before, and I was so distraught. I was like, bro, like this was supposed to be my moment. Like God, like this is like
Right.
what we agreed on. Like you gave me this passion, this vision, and these dreams, and now I'm like got to do my favorite thing, and it got taken from me. Um, and I sat down like with our team, and kind of like mourned that moment because we all poured a lot of work into it, and like we just had this realization of like that one was specifically just for the Lord. Like we put
Mm.
in all that work and all that time and all that effort and all those travel days, and it wasn't wasted. It was simply to say, God, like you put us in this position, and none of it matters. It's all for you. Doesn't matter who
Mm.
on Instagram sees it. Like that one was just for you, and we just like took a breath and just like accepted that, and that then shifted every single thing I did from that moment on. And that was like earlier on, like 2019, 2020. And now, like coming back to that question, it's like what shapes my role and in my position is I want to make something that is pleasing to him. And that comes from how am I treating people on set, how
Mm.
am I encouraging people in a brainstorm where they're feeling vulnerable and they might not have done this before, building people up in the post of saying, you know, just whatever that looks like, and then letting go of it and going like, hey, once that thing goes live, like it's not our responsibility
That's it.
to figure out where it lands. Like we were obedient with the steps in which it takes to make this production happen. And as a film director, there's this leadership position that you're placed in, and it's like,
Hmm.
how did people feel after that production? And if they're not feeling good, to me, it's a L. Like if someone got like just ripped apart in front of a bunch of people, like that's not cool. You know, that's not how I want to live my life. So I would say like the past like 4 or 5 years have been more of that and less of like how can I make something just cool. But at the same
Right.
time, you can still do cool stuff and marry those two.
Yeah.
You figure out how it both works, and
Absolutely.
then you're just in this beautiful flow, you know?
Mm. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that. And from a
Yeah.
film director perspective, where you're kind of, steering the ship in terms of like trying to create this project, you're balancing the opinions and creative ideas of people on your team and also the artists that are a part of Elevation Worship, and also just the overarching structure of just Elevation in general. How do you look at all of those different opinions and still maintain that vision of where you're headed? And like,
Yeah.
how do you, I think I already asked the question. I'm trying to find a better way to ask it, but
Huh.
yeah, just how do you manage as a director all of those different opinions and creative choices?
Yeah, that's great. It's tough at times, especially like in the dog days where there's like a couple projects going at the same time. I think that's like the harder part of like being on staff for an artist is it's like it's not really like I got two projects going on. I'm going to say no to this one. Which it's a luxury at some points, because some people I talk to are freelance and they're like, bro, I haven't gotten a project in a couple months. And for me, it's just it's
Yeah.
steady. So it's best of both. But it is tough in those moments. Especially like there's some times where you're just like, yeah, I don't want to do this.
Mm,
I'm not inspired right now. I'm not inspired by the work or the song or whatever it might be. Um, just because like you're sometimes in those moments and you're just if you're not healthy, if you're not right, like you can just start spiraling. And I think that's usually most of the time. The shift for me usually happens where I come into like a very present place mentally and I go, okay, I can kind of discern the room. Like the team's feeling pretty down. We're looking kind of tired. Um, but we got to do this and we got to make it
right.
happen. Um, as a director, that's going to come from the energy and the perspective that I bring. And sometimes I don't get it right and I just mess it up. But the times I think where I do get it right to answer the question is just like where it's like, hey, and it usually comes back to this thought. It's like, how can we make this like this project, this thing, something that creates a fire underneath us and that we
Mm,
want to put our
hmm.
hands to. Um, and that usually looks like a conversation, Hey, like what's something you've been watching that is inspiring you? Like we have this song, we have to make a video for it or a lyric video or a album cover or a photo shoot, whatever it is. Like, how can we take it? Um, and sometimes it comes quickly and sometimes we have to search for it, but it's like it's that thing where you just like put it in someone else's hands and you ask a question, which honestly is something I learned just from reading the Bible. Jesus oftentimes isn't like giving like do this and do it this way.
Right.
Like he actually asks more questions than he gives commands. And I think creating questions in rooms start to bring out people and who they are and what they feel and what they want to do. Um, so I think that's huge for leading a set and leading a production is just going like, man, dude, if I don't want to do this and I carry that on my face and I carry that and how I'm talking to people,
It's going to
no one
translate to
else
everyone
is.
else.
Yeah, no one else is going
Yeah.
to. But we're here, we're getting paid, and we got to do this. So like, let's shift. And like I said, it's usually just like dumb stuff. The reason I'm feeling that way, but um, I think that's a huge thing, and that goes for like the ones we don't want to do, but it also goes for the ones where we're like, okay, we got something really fun and really inspiring and homie just messes something up on set and like cues something at the wrong time or a camera somebody left this lens and it's in that moment where you can go boom and just like lose it or you can go okay yeah that's chill we don't have the wide so let's just figure out a different way to shoot this or
Right.
hey we messed that take up let's run it again I know we're tight on time but we can figure out how to and it's just like calming down and just finding those ways to because they're people at the end of the day. Like we're all people and we're human and we mess up and we do things and it's like let's continue to treat each other with that love. And I think as a director, especially like you have the choice to do that.
Love it. Beautiful. To round out this kind of topic, I think more
Mm,
specifically, you've gone through different seasons as a director. In this particular moment in time, this season as a director, what are things that you have noticed about yourself that you want to improve on in terms of craft, in terms of leadership, in terms of characteristic within yourself that you want to grow as a director in this season?
yeah, I love that. I need that question. I think like doing it in the space that I'm doing it, like it can get mundane because it's like we're gonna do an album, we're gonna do a music video for that album, and we're gonna do lyric videos and an album cover and all this other stuff. Like it's a cycle sometimes, and I have to get in a good perspective and a good headspace to lock in, um,
Mhm.
so I think like an area I'm trying to grow in is how I am carrying myself. Like even to go back to it, like it's like what words are coming out of my mouth, and it could be as simple as like cracking a joke in a meeting of like, oh, here we go again, or last time we did that, it got cut, and there's no way this one's going to show. That it feels cheeky, and sometimes it's all good fun and we're just messing around, but it's like you got to understand like your words have weight, and I think I want to be someone
Mhm.
who carries the weight of like encouragement and building people up. So I think that's a huge area. And then like on a more like tactical level, like just I think preparation for projects is like you can almost never be like too prepared. There's
Yeah,
always
it's true.
more that you can have or think of or process. And I lean on like I'm a very in the moment person, which is a really beautiful thing when stuff goes wrong and you got to figure out and you're just in a pinch, or you get
Mhm.
to a location you haven't scouted and you got to figure it out when you get there. But when it's a bigger production and there's a lot of people and a lot of moving parts, and you're not here and and you didn't think through all of it, it can waste some people's time and mess some things up. So I think like for me, just spending that extra time on the front end of a project, talking, having the right conversations, thinking about the right things, prepping the right things, is huge. And then honestly, as even though we joked about it, like learning the gear that I'm using and learning how
It's
stuff
true.
works and how lights works, and because sometimes we have full crew and it's like I don't got to think about that, and then sometimes I'm touching everything, and it's like I don't want to get complacent just because as a director I don't have to, I want to be
Mm.
someone who learns the stuff to even be on a relational level with whoever's DPing or whoever's ACing. And we're having to pack down because like even we did a shoot this past weekend and we were on tour and we did a recording for the tour, and I'm like, dude, it's like 12 o'clock and I just operated a easy rig for 2.5 hours. Like I'm toasted, and I don't really
Right.
know how to break down this camera the way you're going to do it. I can easily go, which my natural tendency is go, all right, well, I'm gonna go, do something else. But I'm like, I just want to be a person who's like, I just want to at least hop in and learn. Like, talk to me
Mm.
dumb, I'll figure it out. And I think over the years, the more I've gotten to direct and gotten in that position, the more and more I've stopped learning, like my my tools and my gear. Um, and I feel like everything has just sped up so quickly over the past 5 years, where it's like now using like what used to be a consumer camera can get you the same image as a mini or something greater, and it's just like staying in that loop.
Mm. All right. I want to switch into the last thing, and I'm
Yeah,
really curious because I don't really know much about it. But your new company, Onus,
yeah,
Honest,
yeah. Onus,
what's it about? Tell me about it. Yeah,
yeah,
Onus, tell me about it.
um, yeah.
If you can, because I know you haven't really released much of anything yet. So share what you
Yeah.
can.
No, this is great because I honestly haven't figured out like a medium to talk about it. It is at the core of it, it's a activewear lifestyle brand
Mm.
that is focused on like creating a gap between you have like your very generic beginner fitness people, and then you have like your elite pro athlete, like I'm gonna do an Ironman and a marathon at the same day and bench press 500. um but then there's this gap of like, yeah, but there are also people who just like want to live a long life and live healthy and strong and challenge themselves and do a marathon here and there, but like aren't trying to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and like run like a Olympic athlete. And this is like kind of the space that I find myself in. Uh, and I see a lot of people fall off from, like, I see like homies and friends who like, yo, dude, I want to get in the gym. And for me, when I was 15, I was super skinny and I was
Mm,
going into high school and I was like, this is not going to work. And I was just like, I got to put on some weight. So I just started doing
right.
push-ups and sit-ups in my room, and drank as much protein as I could, and just started learning the journey of like what it looks like to live a healthy lifestyle. Got super into CrossFit like everyone else during that
Mm,
time, and started competing in CrossFit and training 3 to 4 times a day, coaching, got my certification, just like went all in, was about to open up a gym before I felt the Lord call me to do ministry,
mm,
and in a church context. And um, kind of like push that to the side, because it like started to become like, in the filmmaker world, it was just like you just got to post like really mysterious, really dark photos, if you want to get like actual cool stuff. And
yeah.
I was like, I can't be posting my workout videos anymore, so I stopped doing that. But it was always like a part of my life. Like every
Mm,
day, I'm like, the first thing that's on my mind is like, how am I going to get my workout in? If I don't get my workout in, I'm in a bad mood. And I'm
I'm
just
in the
one of those people.
same boat.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's something where I had this like moment. It was like 3 years ago. I had this moment where I was like just kind of at a space where I was like, what do I want my life to become? Like, what are some things that I can control and some things I can't control? And one of the things that, after talking with one of my best friends, he was like, dude, I've known you for however many years, no matter what. And I was kind of just like processing, like, should I join this thing or do this thing or quit and do this?
Mm,
And he was like, no matter what, as long as I've known you, like, fitness has been your passion. Like,
right.
why aren't you doing something in that space? And I was just like, dang, yeah. That's like, it was just like this like switch that happened. And it was like the way he said it, the time he said it, and the position of life that I was in. And I've always wanted to do it. Like, it's like, that's like that kind of feeling, like everyone has an idea for a podcast, but only certain people start a podcast. Everyone has an idea for a clothing brand, but only certain people go that mile and do it. And
Right.
I was one of those guys where I was like, yeah, like I want to create a activewear lifestyle brand. Um, and I'm going to do it one day. And that was it,
One day.
one
One
day,
day.
baby. And I think it was Rick Rubin's book that really helped me, or was an interview
Oof,
with
such a good
Rick.
book.
Yeah. Um, that he said there is like, or was it Andrew Huberman? I don't know. They said like there is a, they're pretty much the same people in my mind, especially
Yeah, I was gonna
people I
say.
know too. I'm like, either if it's from the Bible, Andrew Huberman or Rick Rubin, we're Gucci.
We're
Um,
good.
yeah, I'm following it. But he said they were talking about like there is a kind of a dopamine thing that hits in your brain that when you just even talk about doing something, it
Mm,
channels something within you that gives you just enough to go, I'm good. Like, I told somebody that I was going to do this, and now they think I'm going to do it, and I don't even have to do it because I feel charged enough at that moment. And I
interesting.
had like tons of that stuff, like kind of going out where I was like, yeah, I want to do this and do this short film and start this brand and do this and do a podcast and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't doing anything. And even like the Lord showed me, he was like, you keep asking. And I was still in this space where I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And like, what should I do? And he's like, you keep asking me to give you ideas and to give you these passion, these dreams. And I just like saw this image in my head, like kind of like being open and like all this stuff was like coming in. And he was like, but I've given you dreams, passions, and desires that you haven't acted on. And
Mm,
I'm not going to keep providing you with new and fresh things when you don't have room because the old things are so filled in your brain. Um, and for me, that was like the moment where I was like, all right, what is that thing that all of these funnels lead to? And that's where Onus became a thing. Was I don't know the full picture per se. I feel like the Lord gave me like enough to go like, yeah, this is what I want to put my hands to, my time to. But he didn't really give me the steps and which that looks like. So for me, it's been this journey over the past I would say like 2 years of like actual work of like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to start chasing and start
All right. It's
figuring
one
some
step at
stuff
a time.
out. Yeah, and it's that verse. I think it's Matthew 7:7 where it's ask and you shall receive. What the next what comes after that verse, and I think we all like live in that space. Like, all right, God, like give me something new, give me a new idea, like blah blah blah. And he's ask and you receive it. But the next verse says, seek and you shall find. And I think a lot
Mm,
of us stop there. And for myself, I stopped at the ask and you shall receive. And this past 2 years have been seeking and you will find. And I've just been seeking conversations, interactions, studying, watching videos, doing research about what will this look like. And I'm at a space now where it's the work is starting to come to fruition. Um, so I mean, I hope this works out in the timing that it is, but like we as in me, are planning to drop
I
August.
love that. You always got to say we. Always got to
Yeah,
say
you
we.
always when you're starting something, bro. Just yeah, me and my team, we're getting this thing. Which granted, I will say I do have some really amazing people. My buddy Tim Womble, who's like doing all our website stuff, and then my buddy Michael, who's like doing all the design stuff, and Colton and Paul and Evan,
You
like
you
these
got
guys.
a we. You got a we. It's
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
you. You're not
None of them are
lying.
getting paid, you know. So I don't know how they feel, but they are contributing and they are building, and none of it would even be close to being able to drop without them. But like August 9th, we're planning on dropping the first run of stuff, which is so to even go like more
Oh man, that's
specifically.
coming up.
Yeah, I think it's this Friday or next Friday or something
That's
like that.
exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's something that like I get really excited about.
Mm,
None of it feels like work, you know. It all feels like this overflow of joy and this overflow of like a culmination of like my whole life that's led up to this of like filmmaking, creativity, learning that stuff, skateboarding and growing up and being into that, being into wrestling and this, and it's like all I'm like taking all of that and like bringing it into a brand essentially. And like creating this smoothie of like things that have inspired me and just offering it to the world, not trying to say we have this new technology or this new way of doing things and it's going to change your life and you're going to lose 30 pounds by doing it. It's just like, this is just my expression of it. And I hope it connects and I hope it relates. And I hope somebody can feel a little bit better and want to work out and want to get in the gym. So that's kind of like the ethos of it and like kind of where it's come from. And this first drop we're doing is like a strength and hypertrophy based drop. So like for instance, like
cool.
this hat that I'm wearing was a hat that I designed like with a friend, and fully custom hat, like cut and sew down to the
Mm,
height, to the size, to the materials that are inside, to like the stitching and the branding. Like just I was like, I don't want to just print on another hat or print
right.
on another shirt. Like I want to create a brand that is everything that I'm kind of feeling and speaking and doing when it comes to like the vintage tee that everybody loves, the fit of the boxy vintage tee, and it's a high collar
That's
and
what I
it's
got on right now.
shoulder. Yeah, rocking the represent, like the drop
Yeah.
shoulder and the crop. And I was like,
Hmm.
how can I take that style and like take the performance of a Nike shirt, but a Nike shirt is like terrible fitting and like you can only wear it to the gym. How can I blend that? And so I worked with some fabrics to get like a cotton polyester blend that marries the two but still has the shape, with a nylon hat that kind of sits like a hat like you're wearing, where you just rock it out out
Hmm.
and on set or something, but then it's nylon and it has a polyester band, so like it sweat wicks and performs. Um, so kind of like jumping into all those details to now like releasing the first project as I'm working on fall of next year, because it just takes so long to get stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
learning all that stuff in between, but I could
Sweet.
talk endless miles on it because it's like my world and what I'm living in right now. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope people connect with it and relate with it. But for me, it's like it's just a start of something. It's like I'm if the first drop goes well, cool. If not, it's okay. Like I'm trying to build like a brand and a company that um is 5 years from now like really really sustainable, and
Right.
that's what like the past 2 years has been, is like getting LLCs and patents and
Mm.
websites and domains and shippings and making sure all that stuff is dialed in so that the customer has a great experience, and trying to do everything that I know how to do like on that front end. So
Amazing. Yeah, dude,
yeah,
I'm excited for you. I'm
yeah,
excited for you. It's gonna be great.
we got to get
When
you
is
in
it?
some gear
August.
on your runs and
I
on your lifts.
I was gonna say it's August 9th. I'm definitely having all of whatever you have in my cart for sure.
Let's
Because
go.
I've been seeing all these like samples, these like teaser stuff, and like your
Yeah,
hat. Like it looks
yeah,
sick. I definitely want to. I'm definitely gonna support it. I'm really excited for you, man.
I
It
appreciate
takes
that.
it's a bold step to put something out there that you really believe in and is yourself. So I commend you, and I'm really
Yeah.
excited for that journey for you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Last question is
Yeah.
where you are now in your life. You have a wife, you have a child, you have a great career, you're starting a business. You're sitting across the table from that younger version of you that woke up hungover
Mm.
and is asking why. What advice would you give that younger version of you?
That's good. Hmm.
It's definitely not a gear podcast.
Yeah, no, I love it. Honestly, I'm encouraged by the conversation. I'm like, I love this. This is great. Um, I think the advice I would give myself back then is I'm trying to think so I don't just say something that just sounds good. Um,
It's a tough question, I know. Yeah.
yeah. I think I would say, and it's something I think I would even tell myself now, is spend your time getting really great at being present.
Mm,
Because you're not promised tomorrow, and you don't know what the rest of the day will look like. But I think I in those days, like I intentionally or unintentionally hurt like a lot of people, with my actions and the way I was living, and even friendships that were like really solid friendships, but I didn't take a moment to go like, hey bro, like I really appreciate you and like really love you and care about you, and like I didn't do a lot of that kind of stuff, because I think I was so just like on to the
right.
next thing and into the next moment and going off a feeling. So I would say like, and now like having a kid and a wife and career and like you're saying and like building a brand and doing all this stuff, it's like, yeah, but I still can't miss these moments, because it could all end, and and it could all be gone, and I could look back and go, for what? Like I
Mm,
did all this stuff, and all these people knew me and heard about me and this and that and connected, and but like for what? Because I was so just on to the next, and I don't want to miss those moments, because I truly believe like like what I'm learning the most about in life is the when the disciples asked Jesus like how do we pray, like what are we doing. They didn't ask him how do we preach or how do we heal people or how do we see miracles, and they asked how do we pray. And I think when they asked that, they walked with Jesus and they saw him and they saw that his life was a life of prayer, a life of times where he would pull away from the crowds and go up to a mountain and pray. And I think there's power in that. And so when I'm reading that verse, the first part of it is, give us this day, when Jesus is telling them, give us this day our daily bread. And probably people who aren't Christians even know that word or that line. You see it on the back of a rap T-shirt or something. And it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, give us this day our daily bread. And bread is like, my wife started making bread like a couple of years ago, which is like the best thing ever. But I watched her do it, and it was like about a 48-hour experience of like getting the dough, putting it in, mixing it together, letting it sit, letting it rise, and coming back to it, touching it, messing with it, blah, 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 like a long time. And then it would come out and it would be awful. And it's just like, oh, wow, you spent all that time for it to be. And then now it's like, she spends all that time and it's absolutely incredible. But it also, if I don't eat it the week it was made, it gets moldy and it's really bad. Or it's super dry. And that verse and then that concept was just this moment of, give us this day our daily bread. What he is saying is like, Lord, there is something fresh in today, and you have given it to us, being these 24 hours. Help me see the freshness of life that is in these moments, and allow me to not miss it and move past it. Because if I store this bread up and I store these moments, I'll get back to it. I'll come back to it, and I just got to get to tomorrow, because tomorrow I got to knock out this thing. And if I live in that cycle, I'll have a storehouse full of moldy bread that doesn't taste good. And I want to live in a life that eats fresh bread every day and goes, man, I'm showing up to the same job that I've been working for 6 years. And I just saw that Carlos just DP'd this feature film, and George just did this 247 drop that looks sicker than anything else. And what's the point of my life? Like, I'm just making this video, or I'm doing whatever. And it's like, if I live in that, like looking, all these people are doing this other stuff, I'm going to have a lot of moldy bread in my storehouse. But if I look into the moments and the situations that I'm in currently, and I go, I wonder like what that person's thinking. Like, let me go talk to them, or whatever that the thing is happening in my day.
I love it.
It's just a present perspective. And when you're present, I think you can be aware of his presence. And I would tell my 16-year-old self, be very aware of how you're talking, how you're moving, how you're acting, and be as present as you possibly can, because we are not promised tomorrow.
Beautiful. Great answer, man. Thank you for sharing that. Well, that is all I have for you today, man. Thank you for taking the time and sharing everything. Where can people find you, and where can people find your company? Feel free to share your Instagram website.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the intentionality, the level of questions you asked. I could tell you've put a lot of thought and effort into it. I'm excited to see how it comes out, and hopefully it inspires and connects with people. But just even you asking was encouraging, and it also was a lot of fun just talking. And I know it's like this, I'm on your podcast, so I was like resisting the urge to go. But yeah, so what do you think? What is your feeling? What do you think?
I know. Yeah. We'll do a round two.
Yeah. But I would say just my name, Mait Hudson, on like Instagram. Cool. For just life. I started a YouTube channel a couple years ago, and do more just like fun, not really thinking about it, vlogs and lifestyle videos, if you like that kind of stuff. And then Onus.lab is the Instagram for the brand. And then onuslab.co is the website. So if it's past August 9th when this drops, then hopefully there's some stuff still in stock. I hope there's not.
Well, hopefully it's sold out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully it's sold out, but you never know. Starting something fresh, it could be fully stocked, baby. Go get your large XL, whatever you need.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Thank you, dude.
those are the two.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you to everyone listening today. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you next time. Peace out.